Hello and welcome to the Cyber Minds podcast, a podcast where we get to meet and explore the minds of thought leaders in the cybersecurity and technology world. My name is Mark Williams and I am the founder of Quigley Cyber. At Quigley Cyber, we work with clients to provide the best cybersecurity resources and services to help you build the best teams and solutions. And as we say at Quigley Cyber, it's always about the people. So because the strength of your cybersecurity capability is always about the people, in this podcast, we get to meet some of those people that make this industry so great. David Luchi is a seasoned cybersecurity leader with a passion for embedding security into the fabric of technology. With 13 years of experience in security engineering and leadership, his expertise spans multi-cloud environments, Kubernetes, and implementing state-of-the-art zero-trust architecture, which I know he's published a bit about. Beyond his corporate role, David is a pillar in the cybersecurity community, frequently speaking at national events and coordinating multiple Melbourne meetups. He's a firm believer in empowering the community, sharing his insights on his blog, davidluchi.com, and is dedicated to mentoring the next generation of security professionals. David, thank you very much for joining us on the Cyber Minds podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Now, when I speak with guests on the pod, I try to identify something in them about them or something about their surroundings that will distinguish them from others. Previously, we've had Sothaga from Vocus, who is a 3D printing fanatic, with his printer housed inside a hydroponic grow tent. We've had Grant McKechnie, who had a Christmas tree in his house in May. But I believe there's something I know about you that I'm pretty sure no other guest will have done. You have sim raced against Max Verstappen, the 4-time Formula One world champion and part-time bad boy. Tell me about that.
I think everyone knows by now that Max Verstappen, he's a professional sim racing driver. In his free time, he also drives in Formula One. He's been. I think it was last year that he started the 24 hours of Le Mans on the simulator. He went to the actual F1 race. He won the F1 race, came back for the 24 hours of Le Mans, finished and won that as well. So I've seen him a few times in the online lobbies, and I could race against him in some practice sessions. It's so unfair. Like, he's so fast compared to everyone else. I'm not a pro driver. I'm kind of like a semi-pro level, so a couple of seconds behind all pros. But he's like 2-3 seconds ahead of all the pros. So he's on a league of his own.
Amazing. Yeah, I mean, the commentators in Formula One often talk about his sim racing, and I think they're now okay with it because they know that he can still win 4 world titles while still sim racing at 2 a.m. But initially there was a lot of criticism saying, well, this is ridiculous. He's up all night sim racing and then he's here at the track, trying to qualify for the race during the day. So whatever works for you.
Yeah, that shows his dedication and his passion, and how much he dedicates to racing in general. It's super inspiring. Every time I have the opportunity to jump in and race, I take it. I don't think I'll ever, no matter how much I practice, be anywhere near him. Like, it's a whole new level, but it's so fun every time I can bump into him in one of the lobbies.
Fantastic. Brilliant. All right. We will carry on with the cybersecurity focus of the pod. Now, I asked this of most of our guests, just to get a bit of a baseline. How would you describe cybersecurity to a 90-year-old person who doesn't understand computing in the way that most of us do?
So I had that experience before because I had to explain to my grandma what I do for work. She still thinks that I'm a security guard in a bank, so maybe it didn't work really well. But back in the time, I was working in financial service, so the analogy was a little bit closer. So my analogy to her was she had to go to bank to get her pension. And she knows that every time she goes to the bank, there's a lot of security guards because they have a lot of money. And their job is to make sure no one goes and steal money from the bank. I do the exact same thing, but not in a physical branch of the bank. I'm in an office building, making sure that no one steals their money, their hard-earned money, through computers. So that's probably the easiest way. In her specific case, didn't work. She still thinks, and I'm originally from Brazil, and we do have some bank robberies in Brazil. And when I was working in Brazil, every time she's seen the news like a bank robbery, she will call me like, "Is it a branch that you work?" And I'm like, "No, grandma, I do not work in the bank branch. I work in security, but computers, not the actual uh, running behind, like chasing criminals in the street."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, very interesting. Yeah, it is a challenge trying to explain to that generation. And how about a 9-year-old? How would you explain it to a 9-year-old? They're obviously they're digital natives, I'd call them. They're very comfortable with technology, but obviously not so much the world of commerce.
Yes. Yeah. So this one I've been a little bit more successful, I think. So my analogy for when I speak with kids is I'm kind of like a superhero. Most people don't really know much about security. Security was always like hidden in a dark room in a corner somewhere. So we are the ones that are like silently protecting and making sure everything is working, chasing criminals online and blocking things. So depending who I'm talking to, I can use some more specific examples like Batman or Green Arrow because he's my favorite DC character, and he's pretty good with archery, but he's also pretty good in cybersecurity. So I can use those examples, and so glad that Marvel and DC are very mainstream now, so I can use those examples, and it triggers people's attention.
Brilliant, and thank you for working Green Arrow into the pod. That's fantastic. Now, speaking of that, we need your cybersecurity origin story. How did you get into cybersecurity, so to speak? It's a good story, I know.
Yes. So I was actually doing computer science classes for kids and elders in a very, very small town in Brazil. And one day, my laptop got hacked. It was one of those very old school rat trojans, and made my computer do a lot of funny things. And then I started investigating, like, the hell is this? And this was almost 20 years ago. Now that reflecting now, it's a long, long time. I'm getting old. So yeah, 20 years ago, I got a rat in my laptop and I started investigating like, what the hell is this? And then I discovered what it was. It was a piece of software that people use back in the time, mainly for pranks. Cybercrime was not that big at the time. And then I understood how it works, and I said, like, someone put a prank on me, I'll do that with my friends. And then I started doing that, and simply everything kind of spiral out of control from there. So from there, I got a job, and I decided like this is actually pretty cool. I always worked with IT my entire life, and I said like this is what I want to do for work. I'll find a way to work like playing those pranks in people or doing something like this, like everyone else, my first reference was Hollywood's, like the sexy Hollywood hackers, like they can type a few things and then get into any systems. So this is how I started. Decided to do a bachelor's degree in information security in one of the 10 universities at the time that had that course in Brazil. Got a job in as a stock analyst in a bank, and then kind of work my way up to security leadership now.
Fantastic. All right, very good. So it's all about pranking.
Yes, it always started
Okay,
with banking and evolved a little bit to cybercrime, and it's not so glamorous. And I said, like, wait a minute, I do not like this. My moral compass doesn't allow me to go to that extent. So let's bring it back and do something good out of it.
fantastic. No, very good. Now you've moved to a stage of your career now where you need to rely less on your technical skill and more on the, let's call it, soft skills required for leadership. What have you found challenging about that transition, and what advice would you have to others facing a similar challenge?
Oh, it's a very very hard challenge. Like I said, my background is technology. I work with IT, so I'm a geek. I'm a nerd. I don't have a lot of soft skills. So yes, it was a massive struggle, especially around communication. And I had some extra challenges by English not being my native language. But in general, the best advice that I ever received from one of my mentors was, all your technical background or your skills brought you to this point. To continue like from here forwards, what do you need? Like ignore, like not, do not like ignore in the sense of don't do this anymore, but this will be secondary. Now your first responsibility will be psychology. And this is what been helping me. I am an introvert myself. Sometimes doesn't look like, but I am an introvert. And it was an extra challenge. So I would say for me, no talent. Exactly like we were talking before with Max Verstappen, he do have a lot of talent, but a lot of dedication, a lot of practice, a lot of learning to close that gap. And I'm still learning. And this is something that I can leverage from my background in security. There's always something else to learn. You never will be able to know everything. So just being humble, open, and keep always learning. But yeah, psychology plays a very big part now, especially for IT people that might not have a very strong soft skills to start with.
Yep, yep, absolutely. No, I think that's great advice, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who'll be listening to this who will be either at the start of their career journey and looking at someone like yourself and thinking, all right, how do I get there? You know, I'm not as polished. This guy's so confident on the pod, and he's amazing. How can I get there? Because I don't have those skills. But as you've highlighted, that's something that you just continue to work on throughout your career, and it never ends. Same as every other skill. No one's perfect at it, although maybe people like Max Verstappen are as close to perfect as you can get.
Yes. And also very important, make mistakes. The best way, the probably the only way to learn is by trying it out, making mistakes. So everything I learned, I had to do it myself, or I had someone to mentor me. But all what I've really learned everything in my career was by making mistakes, learning what went wrong, and then improving from there.
And when you're leading teams, either professionally or otherwise, do you try and create an environment where it's safe to fail?
Yes, yes. This is very important, and it's something that is a little bit more ingrained in the Australian culture than in Brazilian culture. So in Brazilian corporate culture, not sure how it's currently, but in my time in there, because Brazil it's pretty much in landmass the same size of Australia, but in population it might be like 5 times bigger. There's a lot of people, and they have a big strong culture to go to tertiary education, so it creates a very toxic environment. Like if you make a mistake, you are out. Someone else will come and do your job for cheaper, or faster, or anything like that. Or if you are not willing to work in a specific dynamic, you are out. Someone else will come in and will do that if you don't want to. In here, I feel like because we don't have a lot of people. This could be one of the reasons. But the Australian people are a little bit more open to failure, and I try to lead by example. So there were like numerous situations in my career where I have to go back to my team and show vulnerability, saying like I made a mistake. I thought it was a good idea. I had data to support it. Turns out it's not applicable for us. It doesn't work for us. And I'm always. This is also a very big learning that I had to learn by making mistakes myself. Not taking failure personally. Um, no one is perfect. Things will go wrong. Doesn't really matter if you have the state of the art perfect security environment. You still can be hacked. As a defender, you have to be. I always say this. You have to be right every single time. And attackers, they only need to be right once. So that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have this environment where you can make mistakes. This is where you learn most, and this is one of the first things I always do in my teams. Um, try to build that psychological safety, so people are open to raise things, challenge me as well. So another really important point, not because I'm the security executive or the head of security or anything like that, that I know all the answers and I'm always right. Um, I'm working and I have the same passion as everyone else in my team. Everyone should be open to challenge me. Not my position defines what good looks like. And no, as I said before, no one knows everything. So just open up and having this diversity of ideas. Even if you get it wrong in the first instance, at least we'll know exactly what wrong looks like, and then we can improve from there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think too, aside from personal improvement, when you feel that it's safe to make mistakes as a team or as an organization, that's how you can innovate most quickly as well. And that gives you a competitive edge.
Yes, exactly. It opens up for innovation, and one interesting point to highlight. Um, I went to a conference last week, and it was on leadership mainly. But just to kind of date the podcast at the moment, half of the conference was in AI, and everyone was only talking about AI and how AI can be used in these kind of scenarios. And it was interesting that half of the presenters started by saying it's too early days to use AI properly in corporate environments. And after that presentation, reflecting 5, 6 years ago, I was building one of the first Kubernetes environments in a very big financial institution. And I remember people criticizing us, saying it's too early days to use Kubernetes. And we made a lot of mistakes. Don't get me wrong. Like it was a very hard project. But fast forward 5, 6 years, those people that were allowed to have this exposure and they were like trying everything, making mistakes, improving from there, they are now that team that started that project. They are now the DevSecOps top leaders in this space in the country. They are the biggest references in that area. Because when it was early days, someone had idea, what if we try this? It might be a little bit over engineered at the moment. It might be overkill. It might not even work. Let's try. And it didn't work in the first try. We made a lot of mistakes, but eventually they built a very, very sophisticated and robust environment. And yeah, it opened up to all started with here's a greenfield project. Go and test everything. If we fail, we have enough security guardrails that it won't become a massive data breach. So go there, experiment, try things out, use things that are early days. And yeah, this is how we're going to innovate and evolve and learn new things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those of us in the technology industries kind of know the direction that AI is going broadly. We're not quite sure how far it'll go, but we know broadly where it's going, and we know that there's massive opportunity there. So it's definitely a case of getting in there, getting your feet wet, giving it a go, seeing how far you can push it now, and then being on there for the ride as it evolves, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, one example that I always use when I talk about AI. Some time ago, don't ask why, but in my free time, I was watching Quantum Physics 101 class, and the lecturer started by saying, "Quantum physics is hard. No one really get it. I don't get it. You don't get it. Feynman didn't get it. But I'll pass my ignorance to you, and then you pass that ignorance to everyone else." And maybe eventually we get to someone that actually get it and they will come back and explain it to us. Same applies for AI. There's no really specialists at the moment other than those uh, researchers that kind of kickstarted the whole thing. So no one really get it. I don't get it. You don't get it. No one really get it. But let's keep trying, keep chatting, see where the limits are, how far we can go, how useful the technology can be. And maybe let's, as the lecturer said, let's spread our ignorance in the subject until it reaches someone that actually get it, and that person will come back and explain it to us.
Yeah, yeah, I like it. Sounds very interesting way to present a class, but yeah, I can understand where they're coming from. Um, Now, what's the most bizarre? Speaking of testing limits, what's the most bizarre or hilarious misconception about security that you've come across aside from your grandma?
Uh, I think there's the common one that security works kind of like the lawyers of IT. This is something that I've heard a few times. Other than the Department of No's, bottlenecks, the people that don't do any value to the business, they work like an insurance. They're very expensive and they don't produce anything. But if things go bad, you are happy that you actually pay them. But yeah, I think the main one for me will be that one. Like security is always kind of forgotten. Still, it's improving, especially because we had some massive data breaches in the country recently. But people very quickly forget about security. So it's a constant effort that we have to do to keep reminding people and educating people, because there's no boundaries anymore in cybersecurity. We've seen data breaches in the past where they target the physical infrastructure, the infrastructure of a person that works in a company, but they target their personal house and their personal devices, and from there they laterally move to the work laptop. From the work laptop, they manage to move to pipelines, and then this they compromise businesses. So there's no line or differentiator anymore of what the boundaries are. Yes, some people still think like we have this kind of perimeter in our environment, but everything is connected now. Everyone is 24/7 in social media and in the internet. So there's no real limits anymore. So we need to keep reminding people, and not just as a work thing. One thing that I actually started recently is running our security awareness programs sometimes outside of working hours, so people can bring their families for very simple things like how to handle a phishing email, how to store passwords in a password manager. So those very basic workshops and training. The idea is to run them um, with your loved ones, because they might not be attacked directly, but someone else can be attacked, and that will become a vector to attack someone. So attackers are very sophisticated, and this is something that we always have to keep reminding people that security is everyone's responsibility and it's not just a work thing. It should be applied everywhere in people's lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And I mean, the reality, I think, for 99% of businesses is that to create a perfect security environment isn't possible, because either the budget's too high or the practices required would be too restrictive for the business to actually operate, and
Mm.
probably a combination of both. And so the closest you're going to get to that perfect environment relies on people being aware of their security responsibilities, each individual within the organization.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, and I think very community minded of you sharing, some education with, family members of your team, and the broader community. That's brilliant.
Yeah, so sharing knowledge is something that has been quite big in my entire life. I would say, coming from both, pretty much. So most of my relatives are professors and teachers, so I had that kind of ingrained in me growing up. And then working very early days in IT and cybersecurity. Long time ago, there were things called hacker spaces, which were like physical spaces when we had like cool tech. We'll get together in those physical spaces to geek out and learn how they work. This is how I got my first Linux distribution 20 odd years ago. And yeah, I was very active at that time, and always through uni as well. For example, I always struggle with some specific subjects at uni, and I was thinking like, if I have those questions, probably my classmates also have the same questions. So it will be interesting if I post somewhere all my study notes, because I've always been like very organized in taking notes. So maybe my colleagues can leverage that in the future when we are all like studying together for the next exams. And that became a blog, and that blog got me in 3 years, 4 million page views in Portuguese. And keep in mind, there's only like 5 countries in the planet that speak Portuguese. So And through that blog, I got my first job in cybersecurity, my second job in cybersecurity. And then from there, I decided that this is now part of my job. And it's my duty now that I know a little bit of cybersecurity. Let's teach the next generation because we do need a lot of support and a lot of reinforcements. Someone needs to be there teaching people and guiding them. Um, as I said before, the best way to learn is with mistakes, but that doesn't mean that everyone has to do the same mistakes. They can learn with my mistakes, so they don't need to recreate them. They can go and explore and find other mistakes that I haven't seen it before and continue evolving. And then always, what I tell to pretty much everyone that I coach or mentor is at some point in your career, my expectation from you is to come back and share your knowledge and pass all the advice that I'm giving you, all the learnings and insights you are getting from me. I expect that one day you'll pass that along to someone else and try to build that kind of culture.
Yep, yep. Pay it forward. I like it. Very good. And so, obviously, as you've talked about just now, educating people is an important part of who you are. It was ingrained in you from a young age. It seems like you see um, educating others as an important responsibility as part of a leader in the cybersecurity community. How do you think industry could do more to support the development of capability in cybersecurity?
Uh, so that's a good question. Here in Australia, is not a huge problem in that specific sense compared to Latin America, for example. Back in Brazil, when I was working there, everyone was almost considered enemies or competitors, and no one really shared anything. The only moment you're gonna share your experience is once you end your engagement with one company and you go to another company. And then between that team, you might start sharing something, but you won't share everything because, as I said before, it's a very toxic environment. If you share everything, they will take you out and put someone else. As soon as you pass your experience, they bring someone cheaper and do that. This doesn't really happen here. People are a little bit more open. When I got to Australia in my first year, I've seen some of these in the big banks, but it's reducing. And what I try to always make a parallel is with the aviation industry. So if we have a plane crash, for example, everyone will get together, all the airlines, all the regulators, all the manufacturers of aircraft, and they will figure out what happened, do like an incredible investigation, solve that problem, and share with the whole industry so that specific problem never happen again. And this is the same kind of idea that we should be having more in security. There are a few forums starting where people are open to share. There's still a little bit of resistance from more like old school people in the industry, but it's something that I'm very passionate about and try to bring along as many people as I can to those forums because this is really important. All I know there are confidential subjects. There's some IP involved as well, but there are ways that we can share, we can help the community without opening up all our secrets, or business secrets. And this we need to do. We need to keep doing more of this.
Yep, yep. I think it's interesting the way different technology leaders that I've spoken to uh, leverage the knowledge from other industries. You've talked about um, the airlines and liking some of their practices and the benefits of bringing them into your own. Um, Grant McKechnie talked about the world of health and safety, occupational or work health and safety, and some of their practices and bringing them into what he did. So, I mean, it's great to go to conferences that are industry specific, like cybersecurity
Mhm.
and technology conferences, AI conferences. But I think it's also really good to network with people well outside those conferences to understand how they approach similar types of problems. I think there's a lot of learning to be done there.
Yeah, 100%. So security in general is a very small field, especially in Australia because we are physically isolated from the rest of the world. But there's not a lot of diversity in security.
Mm.
But this is also something very important. If we foster more diversity, we have diverse ideas, diverse point of views, and that will enrich. And this is why it's very important to tap into other areas as well, because they have different point of views, they have different problems, and we can always learn with each other. At the end of the day, we're all in the same fight on the same side, fighting against criminals. And on that, cyber criminals, they also share a lot of knowledge between themselves. Their training programs, they are called organized crime for a reason. They are extremely well organized. And in my career, I've been able to see a little bit of how their operations usually work. And their learning modules and learning platforms is very, very incredible. So if the criminals are sharing information, training themselves and training others, we should be doing the same and learning with everyone who can.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think, I mean, there are some networks that exist in Australia. Some of the organisations that have been breached more recently have done a better job in sharing information with industry about their experiences and why it happened and how they're remediating and things like that. But we do have a long way to go, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, 100%.
Now, talking of sharing, you're very active on LinkedIn. You publish a lot. You've recently been focusing a fair bit on AI. As you said, you went to an AI conference. Do you think that humans' relationship with AI will end happily ever after, or will the wolf eat Little Red Riding Hood?
Um, I would say we are currently at that at the point that we have the two paths in front of us. There's the very utopic path where we will end up in a perfect society. All the problems will be solved. It will be happy days. AI will come along and will enhance our capabilities and build the next evolution of the human race. And on the other end, we have the dystopic future where it will be exactly like Black Mirror. We are fully monitored, no privacy. Everything we do, everything we say will be used against us. What I think will happen, it will be for the next maybe 2 years, will be like pendulum on those two extremes, and eventually we'll go to like a moderate view that still can be quite dangerous, but it could bring a lot of benefits. Everything, any technology, anything we've done, it can be used for good or for bad. For example, we can build rockets to go to space, send satellites, explore the universe, or we can build rockets to blow up other people. The same will be applied for AI. There will be very good uses like solving cancer, identify diseases, maybe helping with, especially make humans live probably longer and healthier. But at the same time, it will be definitely be used to harm other people. So I think will be, as I said before, will be pendulum. Will be like a pendulum going to both extremes, but eventually we'll find like a middle ground between those two.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I like your analogies. They're very similar to the way I think. Um, and yeah, Black Mirror. I watched it up until the episode with the British Prime Minister and the pig. That was it. But
That's
I,
the only bad episode. All the other ones are pretty good after that.
fair
And yeah,
enough.
this show is like 4 or 5 years old. And if you watch the first season, I remember watching when it was released, and it was like sci-fi, completely fiction. And I rewatched when the last season came, this year, oh, last year, late last year, and I was scared because all the things in season one are actually happening now. So it became reality really fast.
Yeah, yeah, things move quickly. Um, now we've talked a lot about educating people, which I think is really good. Why is mentoring an important part of developing the next generation of cybersecurity leaders?
Um, it's a good way to one build the right culture from the get-go. So security is a newish industry still. It's like 20, 30 years old compared to other like century old industries. So it's still fairly new. And there's no single path in security. So if you look at my career and my background, for example, I'm all over the place. I've done a little bit of everything. It's not like a linear progression. And the same applies for today. So having someone to be there, like giving you some guidance on where to go, could shorten that learning curve. It could give you the right mindset, which will help as well. And what I said before, it can show you some mistakes so you can learn from others' mistakes, and you don't need to do all of them yourself. You can open up to do your own new mistakes that no one have done before. Once you've done that, document it and share back.
Yep. Yep. Very good
So it
point.
just becomes like full cycle. You learn from someone, and I'm very grateful because I'm only here because a few people along the way gave me a hand. So as I said before, it's kind of like my duty to pass to the next ones. And yeah, I learned a lot of things that I didn't need to go like trial and error. Someone came and said like, "Oh, this is what I've done. This is what worked. This is what didn't work. Go and have a crack at it." Everything I learned, I added to this previous knowledge that I already had. And every time I pass that knowledge to the next person, I always say like, my mentor told me this works, this doesn't work. And on top of that, I tried this and I tried this works, this doesn't work. So give a little bit more like a path forward. As I said, it's not linear, so it still have a lot of room for improvement. And every option, every sub feedback helps, because as I said, there's no like single path, and people can come from all different areas and all different fields. So when I started in security, the only way to get into security was being like either a developer and then be trained in security and transition, or being a sysadmin for years, and then you get very good at that, and then you naturally transition to cybersecurity. Now we have people from all different areas, even outside of tech, jumping in cybersecurity, and this is great because it brings, as I said before, diversity. But they might need some help to guide them and understand where they can go and what's more relevant, and where they uh, what kind of areas they have more affinity to. So just by helping someone and cut all the noise, it can be quite helpful.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And that's how we've evolved as a human race, right? It's trial and error and passing information on. That's how evolution occurs. And I think you're absolutely right. This industry is really in its infancy, and you can even see that in the hierarchy of cybersecurity within most organizations.
Mhm.
Realistically, the most senior person in cybersecurity should sit alongside the CIO and report directly to the CEO, in my opinion. But in there's lots of different ways that person is structured within organizations, and it's not always leading to the best outcomes. But that's just because of the infancy of the industry.
Mhm.
And in my belief, there's not enough people rising up to those senior roles as there are compared to traditional security. So
Mhm.
the more people coming through, the greater the quality of leadership with people like yourself, and then we end up with those leaders that can sit at the
Yeah.
table.
Yeah, and to your point on the whole hierarchy, another joke that I use very often: most technology, they have two origin stories. It's either war or porn. Luckily, or not, maybe, security came from the military arm and not the porn industry. So you can still see a little bit of that hierarchy and structure and discipline from the military still in cybersecurity. I think we are in a second or third generation of security professionals, and the first generation being the people that came from the military directly. So that hierarchy still applies. There are still a lot of people with this mindset. But yeah, it's something that we need to change. And a good example of this, CISSP, the biggest security certification in the planet, they have a dedicated chapter for data classification in the military that is completely outdated now, but still relevant for whatever reason. You have to learn, you have to memorize how US military classified information in the 80s, because this is where security came from, and this is what they still use to teach. So yeah, there's still quite a lot of room for improvement, especially to kind of detach a little bit more from those very strict environments like the military. I had, for example, in my teams in the past, people that, for example, if I said something even out of the record, even like in a social setting, because I'm in a higher title or a higher position, that person will take that as an order, even if there's like nothing to do at work, or it's just like an informal chat, or I'm asking about something like in for my own curiosity, and the person will take, or like if I ask them something or give them a call, they would treat it as a direct order from the top, and breaking that, it's very challenging.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a really good point. Now, one final question before we wrap up. I think one final. Um, if you could give one piece of advice to someone aspiring to become a cybersecurity leader, what would it be?
Uh, there's the two main advices that I received from my mentors. Well, maybe three that I received through all my mentors. The first one, the one that I said before, um, uh, uh, it was around uh, be curious. You have to have that passion. So that's one. The psychology one is good one. If you want to become a leader, you have to dedicate a little bit of time to understand how humans work. Computers are very predictive, very obvious, 1 or 0, it works or it doesn't. Humans are not that easy. They are harder to read, they are harder to interpret, they have their own minds. So dedicate some time on the psychology side of things. Be curious, and on the be curious part of thing, going back to Steve Jobs in that presentation in Stanford University, that was one of the biggest uh, turning points in my life and my career, was that speech from almost like 20 years as well. The stay hungry and stay foolish, Steve Jobs used to say, and I take that personally and pass to everyone. So stay foolish as in like be humble, there's always something else to learn, there's be open to try things and see what's out there, and be hungry, always hungry for knowledge, always trying to learn, try to improve, especially in security. Every day there is something new coming out. So those are probably the best advice. And last, another really interesting advice that I received from one of my mentors: there's a lot of things happening in the industry. A lot of things will go wrong. There's a lot of things that we do not have any control over. So let things burn was the advice, but not in the sense of like be negligent and ignore things. Just focus on the things that you can control, that you can influence, and go like double down on those. Do everything you can to influence those things, and as you progress, as your sphere of influence grows, the things outside of your control, they eventually you have some sort of control over, and then you start focusing on them. Until then, let them burn. Do the best to put down fires, which is part of our job, but we won't be able. We don't have enough people in the industry to solve all the problems. Sometimes we have to let a few things burn.
Yep, yep. I like it. I like it. And on the stay hungry, stay foolish, that's also one of my favorite quotes. I had that made into a poster, which I have at home. It's about 1.5 meters by 2 meters. It's huge, and I have
Wow.
that on a wall at home. It's a good one.
Good idea. I need to replace some of those frames. Good idea.
Uh, Excellent. David, it's been a real pleasure to have you as one of our guests on the Cyber Minds podcast. Thank you so much. And I look forward to following your publications and seeing you at conferences and witnessing your growth as a leader in the cybersecurity space.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I've been following the podcast. Great job. Very happy to be here. It was a really fun, really awesome conversation.
Brilliant. Thanks, David.
Thank you.